This is the OnStage Blog Theater podcast. I am Greg Earhart. I am part of the editorial staff of OnStage Blog and your host for this episode. And joining me today is the inimitable Jacqueline Collier. Jax, hello, how are you?
Good. I'm really excited. When you talked about our topic for today, I was like, ooh, this is going to be so juicy.
This is right, yeah. We're gonna have some fun with this one, and obviously we have some things to share. And then also we have the man who he doesn't ever write emails more than a few sentences long. It's just snippets. Like he'll just write a snippet of the email and send it to me saying, by the way, open my email to find out more of what I want to write. Chris Peterson, founder and owner of OnStage Blog. Chris, how you doing? How you doing today?
Good to see you. Good to see you. I'd give a juicy snippet of response, but I'm saving it. I'm saving my juicy Say that. snippets for later on. Exactly.
Right, right. So yeah, for those who are wondering what the heck is a joke, it is a little bit inside joke, but Chris loves the snippets on social media posts. Like he lives for it. He spends hours crafting them, and for previewing the article they're about to publish. So,
Exactly.
okay, so this we have a special two-part episode. So, part one is going to be I've asked Jacqueline to come up with a list of five of her biggest pet peeves working with directors in theater. And so Jacqueline's going to go through her list, and we tried to get directors Jacqueline actually worked with to respond to these pet peeves, but no one was available. And they told me to buzz off basically. So instead, we have Chris, who has been a director on a number of community theater plays. He's going to stand in and respond to these pet peeves. And for those who don't know, Jax is an actress. She's also an acting coach. So you've done a number of plays on many various different scales and theaters. So let's get right to it. So, Jax, let's any order that you want. What's your first biggest pet peeve that you have working with directors in a theater?
My first biggest pet peeve is when a director gives vague or confusing direction, like a make it pop, raise the stakes. Look, raise the stakes. I get what it means, and you can tell someone you did a great job of raising the stakes, but when you tell them to raise the stakes, it's like, okay, I might need something a little bit more specific than that. And when it's vague or confusing, it feels nearly impossible for an actor to implement what the director wants them to do.
Right, right. So make it pop. That's a good one. What are a couple other examples you could I hear what you're saying. I'm trying to think like what are some other quick examples of
Yeah,
like
I'm trying to think like the make it pop, raise the stakes. Like we I've had also directors be like, I need more color to it. I'm like, okay. Like it needs to be more dynamic. Okay. Like there are some things I don't mind as much as you would think. Like if okay, something that can be a little bit like annoying because whatever, maybe it's not driven by objective, is like louder, faster, funnier. But louder and faster is actually pretty specific. You want it to be louder and faster? Okay, like I can give that a try. That's actually something that I can do. I don't need a director to translate everything into like character and objective for me. That's at least something to do, but add more color, make it more dynamic, make it pop, raise the stakes. That like literally could be anything.
mhm.
And I don't know what you're saying.
Right. So, Chris, I'm going to guess when directors make this kind of notes. So, I'm actually viewing it from a business context because, when I work in business and the boss gives me notes on a PowerPoint or something like that, when it's vague, it usually means they don't really know what they want. They just don't like that.
Yep.
Or they're just like, is that the same? Chris, when directors make that notes, is that the same kind of thing where they they just don't
Yeah,
like it, but they don't know what to do, or to work on the positive end, where it's like they want to give the actors the freedom to come up with their own interpretation to go along with them without directly telling them how
yeah,
to
it's
make the scene better.
it's both. I mean, I'm thank God I'm not directing anymore because I feel like I'm a magician revealing our director tricks, if you will. But like, yeah, that's exactly what we say when we don't know exactly what we want. We just don't like what we're seeing, and or it could be changed in a different way. But
like you just said, Greg, you want to still give that freedom to an actor to explore the space, to things. I've never said make it colorful before ever, but like I could definitely see like a director saying it like that. Um, I will say it's the starting point, because then if it doesn't start working after that, then they start getting really direct with their feedback and being like, make it louder, make it softer, make it more emotional, be sadder. But you want to try to start more general first and let the actor explore. Absolutely.
Oh, is it a fair peeve for Jacqueline to have against directors, Chris, or
Oh
unfair?
yeah, no, definitely. It's definitely a fair one, and it's definitely a mark of of a director that maybe tiptoeing and when they should really be kind of like being more direct. Also really
Okay.
having a director that has a clear vision too. And I think that is definitely important.
Okay. So not necessarily a red flag, but if you're in a production where the director's doing this, sort of like a warning, being like, okay, you really need to, or maybe the actor should go back and say, can you be more specific or be a little bit more direct in your notes?
And I would actually really respect a director who feels like they're really in it with you and collaborating and being like, you know what, this isn't working for me. And honestly, I'm not sure why. Can we just try something different and we'll figure it out together? Rather than it being like, okay, you're acting like I'm supposed to know exactly what that means, but I don't know what that means.
I've had again, I've only done one play in my life in sixth grade, so I'm not. But in the business world, I've had a boss literally tell me, "I need you to think what's in my head. I need you to read my mind. You should know what I'm thinking of when I give these vague notes." He didn't say the vague part of it, but I'm like, seriously, I'm like, I'm like, okay, yes, I'm something exactly in your head. But yeah, so that's a good one.
That's
Let's
wild.
get oh yeah, no, the business world is wild. But let's get to the next one. So Jacqueline, what's your next number two biggest pet peeve about directors?
Okay, so this is it's line readings, but I want to say this. I actually think a line reading, a specific one can actually like say so much. I actually don't mind line readings. I'm saying line readings because that's like the broader term. It's when, and I've had this happen so many times, a director will basically act out the entire scene, like full blocking. It's like they just want to show off. It's like they just want to show off. And you know what? I know they're just trying to show off. And I'm kind of like, cool, you want to do it? Like you're just doing it off the cuff and there's no real investment there. Like it's almost like so low stakes for them to do it, but they get to like really like boast about how great they are. And I hate that. Now, I really don't mind a line reading that is like super well timed. I think actually sometimes a line reading can actually really help clarify something, but it's like when you're giving a line reading for an entire scene and you're doing all the blocking. I once had a director demonstrate the whole thing all the way up to he almost kissed my scene partner. And I was like, okay, dude.
Well, I read some questions, some interesting ones. But Chris, the directors just sometimes just need to show the actors how it's done. Like if you're just totally frustrated with how the rehearsal's going, and it's like, you know what, step aside, let the maestro work, or is this just totally
Yeah,
uncalled for?
I
What's
mean, yeah, to Jacqueline's point, I think, that's absolutely a more than fair pet peeve. And I think the timing of when a director chooses to do that says most about them. So if they're doing that early in the process, yeah, they're just trying to show off and be like over controlling person. I've had the same director, do that to me, and literally in the initial rehearsal process. And it was a production of All My Sons, and his name was Brad Shaw. I'll throw him under the bus. I don't care. Like his name was Brad Shaw, and he gave us line readings for every single line, and it drove everybody crazy on that end. Now, if a director's doing this during tech week and like right up to performance, that means the actor's probably still not nailing it. But there's definitely a way to convey that point, without giving a line reading, so to speak. But yeah, I think that's a more than fair pet peeve, on that end.
so does this happen a lot? Do directors do line readings a lot?
If you have actors that are directors, yeah.
Yeah,
Ah,
I think
okay.
that's a thing that I've noticed. It tends to be actor or directors who wish they were acting more, so they just decide to do it. And I'm like,
That makes
okay.
sense.
And it's also not in a way of like, oh, let me get up and move through this so I can explain it better. It's not casual. If it was like that, I could almost like, let's move through this together. It's almost like, let me entertain you.
It's not to teach, it is to entertain. Yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly.
That's a good distinction. Yeah. Chris, you've never done anything like that, I'm assuming, right? As a director?
No,
No,
no.
no.
I know my limits, and I, as both an actor and as a director. So yes, no, I try not to ever do that.
Okay. All right. Well, another good warning flag. That's probably a red flag, right? It was like warnings and then there's red flags. That one's probably a red flag to not work with that director. Um, okay. What do you got next, Jacqueline?
Over directing every beat, micromanaging everything. Like I love table work and I love really getting into it. And I also thrive off of really dissecting a scene moment by moment by moment. But when we're going into like a run and we've done all that, give me your notes later. Let me build some momentum because I'm going to need to build momentum to figure out where my own problems are in the scene. And if you never let us build momentum and get messy, make some mistakes, I'm never going to know where I need to like cue in a little bit more. So definitely let's break it down in the beginning. I actually don't care if you really over direct, micromanage in the beginning, but let me get a good run in without you interrupting me.
So does that mean the director's cutting you off like at the first mistake like that you're making versus just letting the scene play out and then like, all right, let's go over the things that I felt right and wrong. Is that
Yes,
am I hearing
I
that
had a
right?
director who this was on an educational level. So I get it, but he used to do it all the time to the point where I felt like we couldn't discover anything on our own. And it also just it felt so controlling. And rather than like I love to go deep and I love notes and I love a director with vision, but it was almost like I didn't feel empowered to be able to make any decisions on my own, which is not
Okay.
good.
So, Chris, this sounds like the dictator director that you've written about. And I think one of the 100 worst people in the theater, whether it's the old one or the updated one you did. So, justified pet peeve by Jax here, or is
Yeah,
there some reason that yeah, okay,
definitely justified. I mean, I think, there are certain productions that might warrant a little bit more, especially if you're doing like a brand new piece that's never been done before. There might be a little bit more emphasis on the direction since you're kind of creating this new thing, or maybe a complete reimagining of a piece. Like I think of the most recent Oklahoma revival where they completely flipped it on its head and did something new,
hmm.
where you kind of need that extra thing. But to Jack's point, I mean, I think, yeah, it's like you don't need to, as a director, go way overboard, and overanalyze every single beat, every single sight line, things like that. I'll be honest with you. To me, that is a sign of someone who is inexperienced and brand new to this. And typically that stuff gets ironed out with the more productions as they do. But if it's a veteran director that does that over and over again, my God, like that's a red flag. Absolutely.
Good, good stuff. Now, we're that was three, right? So we're on to
Yes.
number four. Okay, Jacqueline. I mean, if you have
Number
like 25, we can get to 25. Let's see where we get with five. But
I'm
number
also
four.
I am going to be honest. It actually is easier for me to think of pet peeves that I have for actors than directors. This was
Okay.
actually kind of tricky for me, so it'll be fun when we do part two because I've got a lot of pet peeves for actors, even though I am one. Um,
Okay.
the opposite of three, my number four is a director that just doesn't give any direction at all. And I love a director who will really let you shape the character and shape the space, but some directors don't even know how to like hold the room and even like properly start a rehearsal. And I think that for me, even if they're going to let you play, make all these discoveries yourself and be like, let's figure it out, that's okay. But not being commanding enough and not being the person who creates the container, the holding environment, I think that's really problematic because that's the director's job.
So, Chris, what would be the reason a director might have this sort of passive attitude? So we kind of went through the dictator director, but what would be the justification for doing a passive directorial style?
Yeah, I think it depends on the context or the setting in which the show is taking place. So let's say if it's doing at a college or a high school, it's an educator that's checked out. So let's just be
Yeah.
honest. Like it's a professor that just doesn't care because they don't like their job. If it's an unpaid situation, it's because they're not being paid. I mean, that's kind of where that's going. Oftentimes, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, there's been times where like I've worked with directors or seen situations where like they're an introvert, a director, which is weird to say as a director, like that's not maybe a job for you if you're an introvert. But in that situation, what the director should be doing is then relying on your stage manager, for your production stage manager. And they're the voice that kicks everything off and tees up a director for certain things. But if you don't have, yeah, Jackson's right. If you don't have that communicator, that person that's gonna, you know, basically frame it and start the entire process and be that leader throughout, it's gonna be a problematic rehearsal period. God help us when we get into tech week and things like that. So yeah, no, that's a really fair point to make.
Um, let's get to number five. Jax,
Number
how are
five.
you gonna finish this off? Go ahead.
Number five is favoritism. And look, I've been on both ends of this, and I love it when I'm a favorite, and when I am teacher's pet, and when I'm the golden child, and then when I'm not. It just sucks. It just sucks. Like, and I get it. You're gonna have different relationships with different people in the cast. Some people may have worked together before. Um, you may just connect with people on a different level. Maybe you really love their work, or you socially are connected to each other. But when it's so obvious and either those people are getting no notes or they're getting more notes, like a lot more notes, because it's like, oh, you're paying attention to them. That always just feels crushing because we all want to be, look, we're actors. We're like, please see me.
Right, right, yeah. So, Chris, favoritism is not only alive and well in theater; it's alive and well pretty much everywhere. Everywhere we look, government, business, like everywhere, it's a thing. Of course, we in theater we strive to be the best. Set an example for everywhere. Is there a case for favoritism with theater just because like the relationship between the director and its leads is kind of is super important for theater as well as its relationship to the stage manager and obviously all the key important people there. I can imagine if you don't have a strong relationship, the production could really go sideways a lot easier, or there's more ways for the production to go sideways. But what's your take on this pet peeve?
Yeah,
Justified or not justified?
absolutely justified. And I think with directors, they have to be responsible and it's a case by case basis. So like, I think about people that I worked with at the community level, a guy like, his name was Matt, who, you could cast him in any role. He would bring it 100%. He would do everything. You'd ask to help out with props, build the sets, help with strike. Like he was just a dream to work with. And I said to myself, if this guy shows up at auditions, I'm going to cast him someplace and things like that, because I just love having him on the team. Now, but if you're blind casting your favorites or picking a show because you just want to cast this one person in that role, that's probably a little bit of a problem, especially in certain, different areas, in the non-professional sense. When it comes to professional theater, yeah, like I kind of tend to say, like, look, you need to make money off this. Has to be a successful production. So if you have a favorite person or person you've worked with for a while now that is going to bring out the best, for this particular role, go with it. But be honest and transparent about that process. Like if you're going to
Mhm.
recast, if you're going to do all these things, just be honest and say this role's not available because we're going to go with a different route. Don't have people come in and have dozens of people audition for a role that was never going to be filled by them because you already know exactly who you're going to cast on that end. But like I said, have it be ethical, have it be purposeful as to why you have your certain favorites, and like I said, it depends on the context.
Often have seen I see this all over theater Reddit where the director casts a family member as the lead. And they're probably not the most qualified person. How often have you two seen that in various things you've been involved in?
I mean, my entire high school career was that. So sorry, like, Mr. Smith, if you're listening to this, you know, my high school director and his wife, who were the heads of our theater program, cast their son and daughter, and then second daughter, when she got to high school, in every single lead role
Yeah, they were the
imaginable. I
lead.
could go,
I
I don't want
remember
to throw
that.
them under the bus, but I could, their daughter was Maria in Sound of Music. His son was Nathan Detroit in Guys and Dolls. Like he was Joe Hardy in Damn Yankees. So it's like it's all those things. So like again, like I've seen it happen a bunch of times. Um, in that situation, it's so tough as a director to, I know, take yourself out of the process, but you got to take yourself out of the process. Have someone else cast the show you, or have someone else direct the show. Like, it's like one of those things. Or don't have your kid come out for theater at all, and have them do community stuff on the other side of outside of it if they love theater, on that end.
So why don't they? Because that's obviously a pretty clear and obvious conflict of interest. I'm not talking about our high school, but we see it all the time. And with a lot of conflicts of interest, they just take themselves out of it and say, I can't be involved, but please go out and someone else make a decision. Maybe that happens that we wouldn't know about, but why doesn't it happen more, do you think, Chris or Jacqueline?
Because those people are ego driven and shady.
More so than
Yeah.
in other walks of life, you think? Maybe not. Yeah. But
Well,
Maybe not.
the ego driven,
yeah,
yeah.
maybe me. I know my parents coached my basketball team and I did not start because I wasn't good.
Right.
And I'm just like,
Right.
yeah. I mean, of course they said it was because, oh, your sister starts, and we can't have both you start, and that's her thing, and theater's your thing. But like, no, it's because I sucked, and they couldn't be starting me. So like, if the
Right.
person's good, like my sister was good, so of course she was starting. But if you're casting
Right.
people and they're like not quite up to snuff, not
Well, that
cool.
happens. I mean, you brought youth sports. I mean, the coach's son or daughter happens all the time that they get to play, they get to start or play the position they should not be playing because they're the coach's son or daughter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm not going to pretend this is unique to theater, but again, we should be leading, not following, or just saying.
Exactly.
And it just really because for as open as theater tries to be, this happens way too often. Where it's
Mm-hmm.
it's just so easy to be like, what, I'm going to hand over casting, at least for these roles, for my trusted advisor here, or someone else, stage manager,
Mm-hmm.
whoever, producer. And it really just frankly should happen more often.
Can I do
Okay.
an honorable mention, Greg?
Oh yeah, please,
Okay,
please.
my honorable mention is, and I get it because I'm someone who like totally just starts getting into the fun of rehearsal, and sometimes things just go off the rails. But my honorable mention pet peeve is when a director isn't organized about rehearsal time. So therefore it's calling people and having them sit around and waste their time because they can't manage a schedule. And if that's consistently happening and you're not getting to things that you said you were going to get to, I just think that just shows not just a lack of respect for the actor's time, but just like you actually can't plan and organize things, which I think is problematic.
Chris, is there a case to be unorganized as a director? Is there some genius behind? No, okay.
No, I mean, when I used to do rehearsal schedules, you say these are the people we're calling, and this is what we're going to be covering during the rehearsal. Now we could go beyond that, but at
Yeah.
the very least, with at least the rehearsals that I would run, we would always cover what we meant to be covered. Now, in the rare circumstance where it's like you might be doing an act one run through, and things are not going well, and you're taking a long time, so we might only get through half of that. But this way, that's all going to be communicated like during the rehearsal itself. But yeah, I've also been, in rehearsals like that with other directors, and it just drives me nuts when you're just standing around waiting for them to figure out what they want to do. Just, yeah, I get it.
Good stuff. So we're this concludes part one of this podcast. Part two will be released very shortly after this one, and this will be Chris giving his biggest pet peeves on actors. And Jacqueline, sounds like you have some too, so we will definitely give you some time, throw it in. But Jacqueline, you have to respond on behalf of actors everywhere about Chris's pet peeves towards working with actors. So thank you for joining us. If you haven't already, please follow OnStage Blog on social media, at OnStage Blog on Facebook, X, we're on Blue Sky, Instagram, we're on TikTok. We have a newsletter too. You can subscribe to that on our website. And yeah, that I think that covers everything, right, Chris? And yeah, no, and check out all of our content tutorials on pet peeves and acting, directing, and so much more. So thank you, and we'll see you in part 2.